I've been watching the Marvel movies with the expectation that I won't like them. Given that I don't normally enjoy the franchise, and people who do enjoy it seem to not really love Captain America the First Avenger, I watched it with the lowest of expectations, and subsequently came out pleasantly surprised. Although I do have a few issues with the film, its development of Steve Rogers and his ideals was an addition to the movie that I was definitely not expecting. Captain America the First Avenger takes care in its first two acts to craft a hero that is someone you would look up to, and it does all of this before Steve Rogers even transforms into Captain America. One of the things that surprised me most about this movie is how it portrays Steve as the underdog, even once he has become Captain America. For the first 20 odd minutes of the movie, I was really enjoying it and was legitimately impressed by the care taken to create this character of Steve, but I assumed that at some point the more character-central plot would give way to an action-filled blockbuster. Thankfully, this doesn't actually happen until very late in the movie. The first action sequence that really involves Captain America isn't until at least halfway through the movie, and even in the first action sequences around this part of the film, they were more about Steve as a character than any kind of spectacle. This does kind of get thrown away, but I'll talk about that in a second. The other thing that gets thrown away is a plot with intent and purpose. Unfortunately, while the film's story places a lot of importance on its character development, it doesn't really connect them with the events of the third act. When the final action sequence starts, it feels really tacked on and rushed. There's a sense that it's only really there arbitrarily, and it obviously makes sense that the Allies would want to stop the villain of the film, Red Skull, from blowing everything up, but in the broader context of the movie, Red Skull blowing everything up doesn't really make any sense. In addition to this, there's no build-up to the fact that this will happen. In a majority of films that feature antagonists, and even in other Marvel films, there are events that occur that clue the audience into the villain's plan. You are made aware of what's going to happen to build tension, and that doesn't really happen in this movie. It's more like just to the end, Red Skull is like, yeah, rad, so I'm gonna blow up a majority of the US and take over the world now. Although I will say this, Red Skull is a decently intimidating and well-designed villain. Hugo Weaving's performance and the little backstory that is provided make what would have been an ultra-generic, power-hungry evil guy into someone much more threatening and fun to watch. As I've already said, the film put a lot of effort into Steve's character. Early on in the movie, Steve is asked if he wants to kill Nazis, to which he responds something along the lines of, "I don't want to kill anyone, I just don't like bullies." The phrase could be worded with a little more nuance, but the point is, given all that's happened up to this point in the film, that line is a really good indication of Steve's personality. He's more of a defensive person than an offensive, which is why it's really disappointing to me that he sets a dude on fire and blows a bunch of people up totally nonchalantly. I overall don't have a problem with him killing, I just think it's a little much that he would ride a motorbike past someone and pull the pin out of their grenade instead of just knocking them off the bike. A really small thing I want to add that was super distracting to me, and probably not many other people, was having German characters speak English with German accents. It's fine if they do speak English as well as German, it just doesn't make any sense that they would speak English to each other regularly, especially when they're putting accents on. Taking your average Marvel film as the standard for filmmaking, Captain America the First Avenger is pretty good. Which is to say, I can usually comprehend what's going on, so there's not really a lot to mention, but I will say this. This is probably up there with Iron Man for best music in the franchise. Its grand and patriotic tone is catchy and totally nails the atmosphere of the movie. So, yeah, I would actually recommend this movie to people. It's pretty good.
Captain America, the First Avenger. That's a 7 out of 10.